I remember the exact moment I first felt disgust. This cold prickle behind my ears, like an icicle inching down my spine. It was last November, late afternoon, a dusty sun filtering through the blinds. She was in the kitchen, slicing vegetables on the old oak cutting board we got as a wedding gift from my parents. I saw her hands, so careful, so precise. And I thought, when did she stop looking at me with warmth? When did the quiet between us become unbearable? I stood there, leaning against the doorframe, and for the first time in my life with her, I felt something close to revulsion. Not because she was doing anything vile at that moment, but because I sensed I had lost any real place in her world. I tried to shrug that feeling off. I remember telling myself I was just tired. Work had been a grind. I'd stayed late the night before closing a deal for the company. Stress, maybe. But the sensation lingered, and it grew, like a stain you can't scrub off the wall, reminding you day by day something has gone sour in your own house. That day was the quiet prelude to everything that followed. They say a big betrayal never erupts without tiny cracks forming first. I guess those cracks had been around for years, or maybe they formed overnight. Depends who you ask. Ask my wife, Olivia. She blamed the death of our love. Ask me, I'd point a finger at her finding herself in someone else's arms. But let me be systematic, like I'm in court, laying out the facts. Fact number 1. I've been married to Olivia for almost 2 decades. We have a son, Jimmy. He's 15. Good kid, kind heart, a bit quiet, but I appreciate that he never gave me trouble. Fact number 2. Around 6 months ago, I found out she was meeting another man. I learned his name, Alex Pierce. I discovered their little get-togethers through her phone, shared calendar events that looked innocent but reeked of secrets. But I was too weary to confront her right away. I tried to keep the peace. The father in me wanted to shield our boy from scandal. The husband in me wanted to pretend we were okay. Sometimes you just wait. You tell yourself you're imagining things. You wait for a normal day, for your wife to laugh with you the way she used to. But that day never came back. Instead, the tension piled up. She would slip out in the afternoons with some vague excuse. I have yoga clients, or I'm meeting a friend for coffee. But her smile never reached her eyes. Her voice had lost that gentle spark. And each time she left, that cold prickle of disgust would creep over me, because deep down I already knew. I recall one night, early January, the heater humming because it was unseasonably cold for Texas. Olivia came to bed after midnight. I was half awake, staring at the flicker from the streetlight outside. She slipped under the covers, not saying a word. I turned to her. Everything okay? She didn't even look my way. Tired, she said. I tried to muster patience. You sure there's not something you want to talk about? She let out a quiet breath, not quite a sigh. I'm fine, she said. Go to sleep. I should have pressed. I should have demanded an answer, demanded some honesty. But I was exhausted. My mind drifted back to that memory from November, standing in the kitchen, feeling that uncanny wave of disgust. I wanted to tell her I felt it, but I was silent. Minutes ticked by, and the gulf between us felt impossible to bridge. The day I discovered the truth in undeniable form was the day Jimmy came to me with a worried look. He had an iPad in his hands, my iPad. Actually, though I hardly used it. The device was synced to Olivia's phone. He found some saved video clips. He didn't say a word, just handed me the iPad. Dad, he said softly, I think you need to see this. And that's when my whole world changed. On the screen was a video in a dimly lit room. Olivia and Alex. I recognized his face from a single social media photo she once showed me. He was leaning in. His hand slid along her waist. She let out this soft, breathy laugh that I hadn't heard in years. She stared at him with an openness, a hunger, that knocked the air out of my lungs. I couldn't watch more than a few seconds. But that was enough. The shape of her shoulders under his hands, the flush in her cheeks, The way her breath hitched when his lips found her neck. It was unmistakable. And that was only the start. If I had pressed play again, I'd have seen more. Probably too much. There was a moment in the short clip. Perhaps it was a snippet of a longer recording, where she half turned to face the camera, unknowing, lost in a wave of pleasure. She had her arms around his back, pulling him in. The intimacy between them was so raw. Even recalling it now, my stomach twists like I've swallowed barbed wire. I set the iPad down on the coffee table. My hands shook so badly, I had to grip my knees to steady them. I glanced at Jimmy. He stood there pale, on the verge of tears, like he'd just witnessed a car wreck. Maybe he had. A wreck of our family. I took a long breath. How did you? But I couldn't finish. He looked at me, eyes flicking from side to side. I wasn't snooping on purpose. I promise. I believed him. He was never the type to pry. He found it by accident. Some automatic synchronization with the cloud, or who knows. We sat in silence for what felt like forever. Then he asked in a timid voice, "Dad, what are you gonna do?" I stared at the blank TV screen across the room, seeing only that image of Olivia's face as she leaned in for a kiss that wasn't mine. "I don't know," I said, but I did know something. I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't pretend anymore. In the next days, I put on a show of normalcy. I went to work, answered emails, tried to talk to my colleagues, but my mind was a tornado. Over lunch breaks, I sat in my truck and scrolled aimlessly, looking for some explanation, some sign that might justify her betrayal. Then I discovered the DNA tests. It was about 2 weeks later, rummaging for a copy of our marriage certificate in the cabinet. My eyes spotted a stack of papers in the back. Test results from a clinic. The letterhead read, "Paternity confirmation." My heart pounded. I yanked them out, scanning the lines. The date was recent, about a month old. They were inconclusive for a second child. But the name I recognized. Alex Pierce. He'd apparently done a test with Olivia to see if he was the father of some child. My child. Or was there a pregnancy I didn't know about? The papers were partial, referencing a second follow-up. I didn't fully understand. Maybe it was a test for some other reason. But the words paternity and Pierce together on the same page made me feel like the floor collapsed under me. Could it be Jimmy's father? But the dates didn't line up. Jimmy's 15, and we never lived near Alex's city back then. I was shaking. So many conflicting thoughts battered me. I realized I had to confront her. The next morning, I woke up early. She was in the bathroom, brushing her hair. I walked in, papers in hand, and set them on the counter by the sink. She eyed them, then me. "What's this?" "You tell me." She didn't speak for a long moment. I watched her expression shift from surprise to something like guilt, then to a cold blank stare. "There was a possibility," she finally said, voice steady. "It's resolved now." "A possibility of what?" My voice was harsh. "You tested for paternity. Of a child that might be." She cut me off. "Stop." Then she took a breath, gentler. "Rob, it's not what you think." "Then what is it?" She shook her head, frustration surfacing. "We had a scare, all right. I was late. We got worried. He insisted on a test." He. The word pierced me, as if she'd twisted a knife in my gut. I swallowed, trying to keep my composure. "And Jimmy." She frowned. "Jimmy is yours. Rob." I wouldn't. That's not in doubt. I wanted to believe her, but my trust was in shreds. "Why'd you hide it?" Her gaze flicked to the side. "I didn't hide it. I just never found the right moment to tell you." A bitter laugh escaped me. "Sure, you never found the right moment to tell your husband you were sleeping with another man, might be pregnant with his kid. Got tested. I told you. I didn't." "Enough," I barked. My tone echoed in the bathroom. She stood there, hairbrush still in her hand, staring back at me with a new hardness. She exhaled and put the brush down. "I'm sorry." I know it's messed up, but I can't keep lying. I want out, Rob. I felt the walls close in, air thinning. You want out. My voice was trembling with anger. She just nodded. I'm done living a lie. I'm done pretending to be this woman I'm not. There's no feeling between us anymore. I pressed my fist against my forehead, as though that would help me think. Then I said, low and controlled, you already left me, emotionally, long before you ever walked out that door. You left me behind while I was still fighting for us. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just stared at me, eyes distant. When I was calmer, a cold acceptance settled in. There was no point playing the saint here. I'd known for weeks. I just kept quiet. But now it was out in the open. She wanted to leave. I resolved to handle it systematically. We set a meeting for that evening, after dinner, to discuss how we'd break it to Jimmy, how we'd handle a house, the finances, like dividing up a piece of property. The day dragged. My stomach churned. I was at my desk, ignoring the spreadsheets I was supposed to review. Scenes flashed through my mind. The video on the iPad, the hush in our bedroom at night, her distant eyes. I caught glimpses of the single moment years back when we were so in love we could hardly stand it. The day Jimmy was born, how she clung to me and wept with joy. How did we fall from that to this? An hour before I left work, I got a call from her. In a quiet voice, she said, "Don't come home yet. I'm meeting Alex at the house. We need to talk about some final details." I nearly spat out my coffee. "You're bringing him to our home?" "Rob, like hell you are." But she'd already hung up. My pulse hammered. I yanked my keys from the desk, shot out of the office, ignoring the stares of coworkers. "I'm leaving," I told my boss. "Family emergency." I drove like a madman, tires squealing around corners. My head was on fire with rage and confusion. Part of me wanted to smash Alex's face into a wall. Another part was too numb to muster a plan. I only knew I had to be there before she let him rewrite our life. I pulled up to the house, braked hard. The place seemed quiet. Lights on in the living room. The porch lamp glowed. I walked up the driveway, my heart pounding. Then I saw her silhouette through the bay window, standing next to a taller figure. Alex. I opened the front door. They both turned, startled. Olivia had her arms folded across her chest, her shoulders tense. Alex stood there, hands in his pockets, but not a trace of intimidation in his eyes. Instead, he looked calm, maybe a bit regretful. "Rob," he said, voice subdued, "we were hoping to talk with you." "Talk," I repeated, stepping forward. "That's interesting, because what I want is for you to get the hell out of my house." He nodded slowly. "I understand." I turned my gaze to Olivia. "How dare you bring him here, behind my back?" Her voice quavered just a little. "He wanted to help me figure out how to proceed." "Help you figure out?" I let out a harsh laugh. "You can't see how twisted that is." Alex held up a hand. "Look, Rob, I know you're angry." "Damn right I am," I snapped. My fists clenched. "You walk into my life, steal my wife, talk about fatherhood behind my back, do your little paternity tests." I paused, breathing hard. "And now you stand here like you're the rational one." He swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. "I'm not stealing anyone. Olivia's made her choice. She's not happy with you. That's on your marriage, not me." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. My vision blurred with fury. I lunged forward before I could stop myself, shoving him against the wall. Olivia screamed, "Rob, don't." I pinned him there, my forearm against his chest. "You think you can just waltz in here and talk about my marriage, as if you know a damn thing about it." He held my stare, breathing fast. He was strong, but he didn't fight back. "I know enough to see she's broken," he spat. "I know you haven't listened to her in years." I was about to throw a punch. My fists practically shook with the urge. But something held me back. Maybe fear of Jimmy seeing me that way. Maybe I just realized how low I'd sunk. I dropped my arm. Alex exhaled and rubbed his chest. Olivia stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder protectively, and I felt the pang of disgust again, like a vine creeping up my throat. "Get out," I said, my voice raw. "Both of you." She let go of Alex and turned to me. "Rob, you can't just—" "Out," I repeated, louder. "I won't have you discussing divorce arrangements with your damned lover in my living room." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she nodded, took Alex's hand, and walked toward the door. He paused, glancing at me. I stayed silent, fists at my sides, nails biting into my palms. They left. That night, I paced the empty living room, the place feeling like a war zone after the battle. My wedding photos were still on the shelves, a smiling young couple, full of optimism. I wanted to fling them at the wall. But I didn't. Instead, I stared at them. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught my reflection in the TV screen. I hardly recognized myself. Jimmy was at a friend's house. Thank God. At least he didn't have to witness that scene. I dreaded the day I'd have to explain everything, though a part of me knew he'd seen enough. That video alone spoke volumes. Sleep was impossible. I sat up on the couch, head pounding, heart twisted. Over and over, I saw the moment I shoved Alex against the wall. That burning violence in me had been real, unstoppable, until the last second. I'd never considered myself a violent man, but betrayal can wake the worst in any of us. By dawn, I felt half dead from exhaustion. My phone vibrated. A text from Olivia. "We should talk about how to handle the divorce. I'll be out of the house this morning. Let me know when you want to discuss." A wave of nausea rolled through me. We hadn't even officially used the word divorce out loud until then. I typed a short reply. "Let's do it soon." In person. I must have dozed off for a few minutes, because the next thing I recall is the doorbell ringing. I checked my watch. 8 a.m. I walked to the door, ready for anything. But it was only my sister, Linda, who lived a few towns over. Jimmy had called her in a panic at some point, worried about me. She decided to come see me in person. I let her in wordlessly. She looked around. "Where's Olivia?" I rubbed a hand over my face. "Gone, Linda. She's with someone else." She stared at me silent. Then she put a hand on my shoulder. "Sit down. Talk to me." We sat in the kitchen. The morning sun bathed the table in a too bright glare. Linda listened as I recounted the gist, the affair, the video, the confrontation. I glossed over the paternity test. I wasn't in the mood to detail everything. She nodded, lips tight, eyes full of sympathy. "Are you going to fight for her?" Linda asked quietly. My mouth twisted in something like a grimace. "Fight for what?" "She doesn't want me. She wants him." She squeezed my arm. "You sure there's no going back?" "Sometimes these things." I pulled away. "Linda, enough. I'm done. I've got too much hurt for that." She let me be. Instead of pushing further, she stood up and made coffee. The smell of it drifted through the tension like a small comfort. We each had a cup in silence. Finally, Linda said, "Jimmy can stay at my place if you need space." I swallowed a lump in my throat. "Yeah, thanks." She left soon after, promising to talk to me daily. As soon as the door shut, I realized how drained I was, like some part of me had just collapsed. But I couldn't afford rest. There was too much to face. A few days later, Olivia and I met at a neutral location, a small cafe near downtown. She arrived first, wearing an understated sweater and jeans, hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She looked tired but determined. I sat across from her. A waitress wandered over, took our order, left us with coffee. Then silence. Olivia fiddled with a napkin, her eyes flicking from me to the window. "All right," I said, voice controlled. "Let's be direct. How do you want to do this?" She set the napkin down. "I won't fight you for anything that's rightfully yours. But I want a fair share, Rob. I contributed to that house too. A bitter laugh slipped out. You want your share. The share you earned while hooking up with Alex behind my back. She flinched. It wasn't always like that. You know it. I know we used to be happy. I clenched my jaw. That's ancient history. She inhaled, steadying herself. Let's keep this civil. For Jimmy's sake. I leaned forward. My son. Mine. Not Alex. Not anybody else's. You keep him out of your twisted saga. Understood. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but she held them back. I love Jimmy. Of course he's yours. I never questioned that. This is about us, Rob. About how we grew apart. I sipped my coffee, feeling it burn my tongue. Stop sugarcoating it. You fell out of love. You found a new man, and now we're done. She said nothing for a moment, then nodded. Yes, I'm sorry if that hurts. She said it so calmly, it ignited a flash of anger in me. You talk like you're describing the weather. Her lips tightened. I'm not heartless, Rob. This is painful for me too. Could have fooled me, I said, voice low. Why'd you do it? Was I that unbearable to live with? I provided for you, for Jimmy. I never cheated, never raised a hand to you. Hell, I even tried to fix our problems when we first started drifting. She dropped her gaze to the table. I know, but it wasn't enough. Emotionally, I felt dead. I took a breath that rattled in my chest. We'll handle the divorce. But let's be clear. You want to be with Alex. You do it on your own dime. I'm not paying alimony for you to waltz off into the sunset with him. She stiffened. I never expected you to. We'll discuss an equitable arrangement with the house. That's all. I nodded. Fine. She hesitated, then said quietly, I do want to see Jimmy. I hope that's not in question. A pang shot through me. I knew she was his mother, that Jimmy would want to see her. But the betrayal stung. Still, I forced a measured tone. He's old enough to decide. I won't stop you from being a mom. But you better be ready to explain yourself. She simply said, I understand. We parted with no handshake, no hug. Just a curt nod from me and a sigh from her. That evening I took a drive out to the lake near my childhood home. The old place where my dad taught me how to fish. Where I always found solace. I parked by the water and sat on a bench, gazing at the reflection of the setting sun. I thought about the man I used to be. The father who came home from work smiling, believing in the simple joys of mowing the lawn on Saturday, barbecuing with neighbors on Sunday. That man was gone. I also remembered the day I first met Olivia in college, her warm hazel eyes, how she admired my straightforward manner. She used to call me her rock, someone she could depend on. How had that turned into a cold, silent separation? Darkness spread across the water. One memory from years ago intruded into my mind, the first time she ever said she was proud of me. I'd gotten promoted at my job. She threw a tiny party for two, had balloons and a silly card. She kissed me so tenderly, I thought I'd never feel unloved. And that memory felt like a punch in the gut, because now she was gone. In that quiet moment, I realized something else. I still loved her. Even after everything, some part of me clung to the memory of her warmth. It made me furious at myself. What kind of fool loves the one who stabbed him in the back? But there it was. I clenched my fists. I won't let this destroy me, I whispered to the empty lake. Over the next few weeks, the divorce process crept forward. Paperwork, endless forms, financial statements. We were dividing assets, discussing custody. I refused to let Alex near any negotiations. One evening, I found a letter from Olivia in the mail. Handwritten, no return address. Inside, she wrote, I know I hurt you. I didn't do it out of malice, but out of desperation to find who I really am. I regret the pain it caused Jimmy most of all. If I could have found another way, I would have. Thank you for all the years you gave me. I read it twice, feeling an odd swirl of anger and sadness. Then I tore it up. I didn't want her apologies. I wanted time reversed. But that was impossible. Meanwhile, my rage simmered. Sometimes, at the strangest moments, I'd feel it flare up like an out-of-control blaze. I was in the garage one Saturday afternoon, rummaging for a toolbox. I came across an old photo album. There she was, Olivia, pregnant with Jimmy, smiling under the bright Texas sun. I tossed the album aside, nearly knocking over a can of paint. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed a spare 2x4 and hurled it across the garage, hearing it splinter against the wall. The sound reverberated like a gunshot. For a second, I was sure the neighbors might hear, but nobody came. I just stood there, chest heaving, tears hot in my eyes. I wanted to punish her, to punish Alex, to strike back at the injustice of it all. A small dark voice in my head whispered, "Do it. Show them you're not to be trifled with." Then I thought of Jimmy. Thought of how he looked at me the day he showed me that video. He'd lost the light in his eyes. If I went down, I recognized it. "Alex," my blood froze. "Why the hell are you calling me?" He took a breath. "Because Olivia and I need to talk to you about the next steps. She's moving in with me, so I cut him off. "I don't give a damn about your arrangements. Talk to my lawyer." "I'm not calling as your opponent," he said calmly. "I'm calling as someone who cares about her. We need you to sign the final mortgage transfer by next week. Otherwise, we can't. Don't you dare tell me what I need to do." He paused. "Look, I'm trying to keep this civilized. I didn't want to break your home, but it happened. Let's be adults." "Adults?" My voice shook. "Is that what you call your little fling behind my back, you self-righteous bastard?" He didn't respond for a moment. Then quietly, he said, "I get it. You hate me. But Olivia, she doesn't deserve your hatred." That did it. I snapped. "Don't you tell me what she deserves, you bastard. You have no idea how deep this knife went. Stay away from me. You want me to sign papers, I'll sign them. But if you ever speak to me like this again, I'll make you regret it. Understood?" I hung up before he could say another word, my heart hammering like a war drum. I spent the next hours stewing, pacing back and forth. Then an idea sparked. A plan that felt like the perfect combination of retribution and closure. I called my lawyer, an old friend named David, and said, "I want to finalize everything as soon as possible. Let's push for minimal concessions." She said she's not fighting me, so let's strip the illusions. I'll give her exactly half the equity in the house. Fine. But beyond that, I want full custody of Jimmy. David hesitated. Full custody can be tricky unless she's unfit. I clenched my jaw. She cheated. She's the one who wants out. Jimmy's old enough to decide. I can probably get him to choose me. She's the one who walked away. David sighed. "If you push it, we can try. But it might get messy." I pressed on. "I don't." He's older and has expressed a desire for stability. Olivia's lawyer piped in. "My client wants equal time with her son." David responded. "She's relocating to a different neighborhood with her new partner. That's not necessarily stable. And we have evidence that the environment is less than ideal for a boy who's still adjusting to the separation." Olivia's eyes flicked to me, full of wounded confusion. "Rob, you're turning him against me." I remained silent, ignoring the flutter in my chest. "Let it be cold. Let me be strong," I told myself. We hammered out the details. She'd get supervised weekends for the first few months, see how the transition went. The rest was property division. By the end, she seemed defeated, shoulders slumped. Alex hovered by her side, giving me an icy glare. But I refused to acknowledge him. A few days later, I bumped into Alex by pure coincidence in the parking lot of the grocery store. Just my rotten luck. I was putting bags in the trunk when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around. There he was, in a casual button-down and slacks, a cart of groceries. We locked eyes. He nodded once, a stiff greeting. I said nothing. After a moment, he asked quietly, Is it worth it? Strangling her custody rights just to hurt her. I tensed. She hurt me first. He set his jaw. She may have, but you're hurting Jimmy now too. You ever think of that? My anger rose like a tidal wave. Don't pretend you know what's best for my son. Jimmy wants to stay with me. He saw the damn video. He knows what you two did. Alex's face reddened. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. That's her private life. She's still his mother. She still loves him, and you're punishing her for loving me. Loving you? I let out a scornful breath. You show up out of nowhere, seduce a married woman, and call it love. He shrugged. I can't change how you see it. But I'm not going to stand by while you poison Jimmy against her. I looked him dead in the eye. You already did enough. Don't push me. We stood there, muscles tensed, two men on the brink. For a split second, I imagined swinging a punch like that day in my living room. But there were too many witnesses around. Families, kids, shopping carts rattling by. So I just shook my head and turned away, slamming the trunk shut. I heard him exhale. You can't keep them apart forever, Rob. Then he walked off. I didn't respond. I climbed into my car, started the engine, and drove away, heart thundering. That evening, Jimmy and I were eating dinner, mac and cheese with some steak tips. He looked at me and said, Dad, maybe I should see Mom. At least sometimes. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. You want to? He shrugged, eyes down. She's my mom. I miss her, even if, I pressed my lips together. A wave of conflicting emotions surged up. On one hand, I resented the idea. On the other, he was right. She was his mother. I took a slow breath. It's up to you. I won't stop you. He nodded, relieved. Thanks, Dad. I pushed my plate aside, no longer hungry. My revenge had seemed justified in the lawyer's office, but seeing my son's hesitant eyes, maybe I was crossing into bitter territory. That night, as I lay in bed, I had a dream. I was back at the lake, casting a fishing line with Dad. Instead of biting fish, I reeled in a net full of broken wedding rings. I woke up in a cold sweat. Weeks stretched on. The divorce was nearly final. Olivia had moved in with Alex. We heard from them sporadically. Jimmy visited her a few times, quietly reporting back that they seemed happy. Each time, that stabbed me with fresh pain. On a Friday afternoon, the final hearing approached. My phone rang. Olivia's number. I considered ignoring it, but answered. Rob, she said softly. The hearing's Monday. I wanted to ask if you'd be willing to talk privately afterward. No lawyers. About what? She sighed. About Jimmy. About us, I guess. Us. The word tasted bitter. There is no us anymore. I know, she whispered, sounding almost broken. But I still want to close this chapter the right way. Please. I paused, letting the silence drag. Finally, I muttered. All right. After the hearing. Monday came. We sat in the courtroom. A plain, quiet place with dull lighting. The judge reviewed the papers. No real disputes left. He granted the divorce, hammered a wooden block that reverberated like a final note in a funeral march. And just like that, my marriage was over. Olivia looked at me from across the room, an odd sadness in her eyes. Alex wasn't there. Maybe she told him to stay away. She walked over when the judge left. Rob, can we step outside? I followed her into the hallway, lawyers trailing behind at a distance. She and I stood by a large window overlooking the city streets. She cleared her throat. I know you hate me now. I didn't contradict her. I just waited. She continued, but I want you to know, I never intended to hurt you like this. I thought it would be simpler, leave you quietly, find my own path. But then Alex came along, and everything. I nodded curtly. I get it. You moved on. Why spell it out now? Her eyes flicked to mine. Because you loved me once. And I loved you too, Rob. I still do in some way, but not in the way we used to. I clenched my jaw, a pang in my chest. Memories of our wedding day, her laughter, her warm hand in mine, flooded me. Don't talk about love when you've turned your back on everything. She swallowed hard. You want me to say I'm sorry, that I regret it all. I can't lie. I don't regret finding something that lit me up inside again. But I do regret hurting you. I regret the betrayal. My fists twitched at my sides. You think that makes it easier? She shook her head, tears in her eyes. No, but it's the truth. We stood there, people bustling around us, the echo of footsteps on polished floors. Finally, she whispered, I hope you find peace, Rob. Truly. I let out a shaky breath. Then, in a voice full of weary acceptance, I said, take care of yourself, Olivia. And that was it. No big dramatic meltdown. Just two people once devoted, now parted. I walked away, leaving her by that window. For the next few days, I was consumed by a hollow feeling. The divorce was final, but the anger and bitterness lingered. I replayed scenes in my head. The video, the confrontation, her chilling gaze. Part of me still wanted revenge, some grand final that would make them both suffer for what they did. Then came the final blow, unplanned. Late one evening, I was outside in the driveway, rummaging through my truck. A car I didn't recognize pulled up. Out stepped Alex, alone. I tensed, ready for another confrontation. He approached with his palms raised in a gesture of peace. Rob, don't be alarmed. I just came to give you something Olivia wanted you to have. He handed me a small envelope. I stared at it, suspicious. What is it? Her set of keys to your house. He paused. She insisted on returning them in person, but she changed her mind. Thought it might upset you more if she came. I took the envelope. You drove here for that. He gave a small nod. There's also a note in there, something she wrote. I don't know what it says. I stayed silent, my jaw tight. He looked at the house behind me. I'm sorry, he said, surprising me with the softness in his voice. I know I'm the villain here, but I didn't set out to ruin your life. It just happened. I eyed him coldly. You had a choice. She had a choice. Yeah, he admitted. We did. We stood there under the yellow porch light, cicadas chirping in the warm Texas evening. Finally, he turned to go. Halfway to his car, he glanced back. For what it's worth, I do hope you find happiness again. I said nothing. He climbed in and drove off. Hands shaking, I opened the envelope right there in the driveway. The keys clinked into my palm. I saw a folded sheet of notepaper. Rob, I'm returning these because I no longer belong in that life. I never wanted to reduce us to strangers, but that's where we are now. Take care of Jimmy. Take care of yourself. Olivia. It was brief and final. I turned the keys over in my hand, the moonlight catching on the metal edges. I walked to the front door and went inside, dropping them on the kitchen table. For a moment, I just stood there in the darkness, listening to my own ragged breathing. Then suddenly, I felt a strange calm. Maybe it was the realization that this was truly the end, no more illusions or hopes. The final chord in a symphony of betrayal. I sank into a chair, the table cold under my elbows, and let out a breath I'd been holding for months. The memory of her eyes, the memory of that video, the memory of how I once adored her. They all swirled together. I felt heartbreak, anger, even a flicker of love. But beneath it all, a sense of release. I closed my eyes. My mind drifted to a flashback. The day we took Jimmy to the beach, building sandcastles, laughing as the waves splashed our feet. She kissed my cheek then, telling me she'd never been happier. It felt like a lifetime ago. In that moment, I decided, enough with the bitterness. I'd let the legal process handle the final scraps. I was done letting this hate corrode my soul. If living well is the best revenge, then I'd focus on that, on building a new life, a stronger bond with Jimmy, Maybe discovering who I am beyond being her husband, because while a part of me might always love her, the woman I loved no longer existed. Maybe she was right. We killed the love slowly, both of us. She just pulled the trigger first. I took a deep breath. Then I stood, took the keys, and locked them away in a drawer. I gazed around my silent home. It was mine now, truly mine, and I felt a flicker of something like hope in my chest. I walked to the bedroom, flicked off the light. The darkness felt oddly comforting, like a clean slate. My chest was still heavy with heartbreak, but for the first time in a long while, my mind was clear. Maybe tomorrow I'd wake up and still taste the bitterness on my tongue, but I'd move forward anyway. The world doesn't stop, not for heartbreak, not for betrayal. I'd find a way to live. I had to, for Jimmy, and for myself. Outside, a warm Texas breeze rustled the trees. I shut my eyes, letting it all settle. This was the end of one life, and the start of another. My story didn't end with her leaving. It began again with me standing alone, battered but unbroken, ready to face tomorrow. No more illusions, no more waiting for a happiness that died long ago. I'd rebuild, or I'd fall. Either way, it was my choice now. The last echoes of disgust lingered, but so did a spark of resolve. That would have to be enough to carry me through the night, and so I closed my eyes.